What if history isn't just a random series of events? What if it's on a countdown clock, and that clock just hit a really important number? Today we're going deep into a fascinating interpretation of biblical prophecy that suggests our time, right now, is incredibly significant. We're going to look at the timelines, the symbols, and see how the Bible connects it all together. Okay, so let's jump right in. The entire idea we're exploring today is built around this concept of a prophetic countdown, a very specific timeline that just reached a major milestone. And here it is. This is the core of that countdown. It all kicks off in 1537 with a decree from an Ottoman Sultan, of all people, to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. Now, the source connects this directly to a prophecy in the book of Daniel about 69 weeks of years, which in prophetic terms translates to exactly 483 years. So you do the math, 1537 plus 483 years, and you land squarely in the year 2020. This date is presented as an absolutely critical turning point, but one that sets the stage for everything else we're about to talk about. Now, to really get how these connections are being made, we first have to understand the two main tools the source uses to decode these ancient texts. It's kind of like a key to unlocking the whole thing. Okay, so the first tool is direct prophecy. The source calls this God's revealed schedule. Pretty straightforward, right? It's a direct statement about the future. But the second tool, typology, is the one we really need to wrap our heads around. Think of it like non-verbal prophecy, or maybe even biblical foreshadowing, where a real person or a real event from the past acts as a pattern for something that's going to happen in the future. And here's the perfect example to make that crystal clear. The Passover lamb, which was sacrificed to save Israel from death back in Egypt, is presented as the type. That's the pattern, the foreshadow. The ultimate fulfillment, or the antitype, is Jesus, the Lamb of God, whose sacrifice is seen as saving all of humanity. This idea of patterns and fulfillments is the lens that's used for everything that follows. Alright, so now that we have the framework, let's see how it's actually used to draw a straight line from these ancient texts right into events happening in our modern world. The first huge modern sign that's pointed to is the establishment of the State of Israel on May 14, 1948. This historical event is interpreted as the direct fulfillment of this prophecy from Isaiah, a nation literally being born in one day. And that date, 1948, becomes a brand new anchor point for a whole other prophetic timeline. And this leads us to a really fascinating typology. What the source material does here is it maps the key life events of the biblical patriarch Jacob directly onto the timeline of modern Israel, starting from that 1948 rebirth. For example, Jacob was 77 when he met Rachel. You add 77 years to 1948, and it points to the year 2025. He was 97 when his name was changed to Israel. That same pattern points to 2045. It's presented as a direct parallel model. So that begs the question, right? Where are we on that timeline right now? Well, as of 2024, it has been 76 years since Israel's rebirth in 1948. According to this Jacob typology, that puts us right on the cusp, on the very edge of that next significant marker, the 77-year mark. Okay, now let's circle back to that 2020 date we started with. The moment that 483-year countdown was complete, it was like a cosmic starting gun went off. It marked the point when the sequence described in the book of Revelation as the ride of the four horsemen began. The first figure to show up rides a white horse, and he's given a crown. And here's the link the source makes, and it's a big one. The Latin word for crown is corona. This is tied directly to the global pandemic that started defining the world in 2020. Right on the heels of the white horse comes the red horse, who is given the power to take peace from the earth. This is linked to the explosion of major global conflicts, with the 2022 invasion of Ukraine being cited as a prime example of peace being ripped away. And what's the natural consequence of those events? The source points to the black horse, who represents economic hardship, scarcity, and famine. This is interpreted as the massive supply chain shocks, the shortages, and the economic pain that spread all over the globe. And the final part of this grim sequence is the pale horse, whose rider is explicitly named Death. The source connects this to the absolutely staggering rise in excess global deaths that were reported by the end of 2021. Over 18 million people from the pandemic and all of its cascading effects. So within this interpretive framework, these huge global crises, they're not seen as random, disconnected events. Not at all. Instead, they're viewed as the visible, physical signs of a much deeper, unseen spiritual conflict that's playing out just behind the curtain of world events. And this is the crucial point right here. The source material frames the entire world situation not as a conflict between nations or people, not flesh and blood, but as a spiritual war. It's a battle against what this verse calls principalities and powers, these unseen spiritual forces of darkness. So in the face of a battle like that, the source presents the idea of salvation not as a single moment, but as a process that happens across three different tenses. Justification is in the past tense. It's being saved from sin's penalty. Sanctification is the present tense. It's the ongoing process of being saved from sin's power in your life. And glorification is the future promise, being completely saved from the very presence of sin forever. Okay, so if you accept this interpretation, that all these prophecies are converging and a spiritual battle is really heating up, then the next critical question is, so what? What is the right response for someone who believes all this is true? And the response isn't about panic or fear. It's a call to awareness, to preparation. It's a call to discern the signs of the times, to understand that as sons of light, these world-shaking events shouldn't catch you by surprise, like a thief in the night. It's a call to be watchful, to be clear-headed, and to stand firm in what you believe. You know, this perspective even reframes things we might think are familiar. Take baptism, for example. The source interprets a key Greek word not as an appeal, but as a pledge. So in this view, baptism is so much more than a ritual. It's seen as a public loyalty oath. It's a conscious, open declaration of which side you are on in this massive cosmic war. So in the end, after we've looked at these timelines, these typologies, and these interpretations, the source material leaves every one of us with this final, really profound question. If history actually is a story, with a beginning, a middle, and an end, it forces us to ask ourselves, what part are we meant to play in that story as it unfolds?